Today we have the honor and the privilege to receive one of the most wise people in Canada. But before we proceed with the interview, let's watch some music.
Mamangola Veroni, Mama Kenge, Alongana, Agnès, Wanande Bakoko Babai. Martin Tekazola, les gagnants. Honorable Nerombungu, Oyokiangwa. Gino Canto, les fils du Dieu qui s'aime. Rosette, la carte qui frappe. Igete Ngundu. Telo Konakui Lungongo. Aswe de Leko. Junior Leko. Premier ministre Abanga Moyo. Honorable Arthur Tekazola, Oyokiangwa. Mami, il est là. Sosa Panyamuno. Lukia Mukanda Placide. Bana Canada. Cinquième génération. Adeti, Tokobeta les sous-sous. Maman Chantal Diatala. Zarek Placide. Mama Chantal Wadiayaku, Timba Vemba, Maître Adolphe Wadiayaku, Oredezo, département commercial. Papa Mabasilwa Blanchard, oyoki yango a? Zakari Bababaswe, Bondi Melanga. Sumbiri Tekiri, Yaya Sera. Bébé Kenge, Mimi Makese, Mama Zizi, Mama Yabana Nyonso. L'ingénieur Diablo, l'ingénieur de son, Michel Ngongo, champion du monde. Oyo ezali pouvoir ya papa Simoki Mbangu, bana na ye mokodi.
You are my land, Africa, my mother, Africa. You are my soul, Africa.
Can you tell us who you are and what you do for a living?
Well, my name's Mike Nickerson, and for a living, for making money, I make furniture, custom furniture, but my passion is understanding how societies change. And when I was not much older than you, I got out of school and I started to study what people were doing that they were inspired to do, like voluntary groups and nonprofit groups, and discovered that there were some problems that were forming around the environment and social issues and things like that, and that there were also solutions for them. And I got very excited about that and started talking with people, and they thought it was interesting, and I started studying more, learned how to tell stories about the things that people were doing, the issues they were concerned about, and the solutions. And I've been working on that pretty much all my life, just looking at how society is changing, and particularly how we're going to deal with the situation where for hundreds of thousands of years we've been growing and expanding and filling up the planet, and now the planet's full, and we have to figure out how to be well without expanding, because we fill the planet, we're starting to push the limits, that's causing problems. And there's lots of ways in which we can manage to live on the planet without expanding, but we have to come to understanding that. So that's what I've been doing mostly for the last 6 years since my book came out, or 5 years, is helping people to understand that there is a way that we can be healthy without expanding, and that it's really very exciting. There's an enormous potential for the human family to mature on this planet. We've had a very long childhood and adolescence, and in your lifetimes, you're going to see the human family mature and take on a form that doesn't have to expand, but looks more at what we do with life once we're adult. Because any adult can tell you that life doesn't end when they become mature. In fact, our relationships get serious, our skills start to be polished, we find out what we can do to offer the world, and that's what we can look for as a society. So it's really quite fine potentials to be looked at, but we are going to have to make some choices.
Thank you. On to our next question.
Where do you think human beings are going today?
Well, I think human beings don't really know. We're following a pattern that we've followed for hundreds of years, And the whole system is set up so that you do something and you want to do more, and you borrow money and invest and you expand it, and you get more money and you invest that and you expand it, and that's the whole pattern. The way the system's set up, if it doesn't grow, the businesses get into trouble. And people are just being told that they should get more and more stuff because, of course, we've been expanding for a long time. Since they figure in the 1920s we were able to produce everything that people needed in the industrialized world. But they figured, rather than figuring out how to be mature then, that we would just figure out how to get people to want more stuff. And we've been trained and trained to get more and more and more, and people don't really know what they're doing. They're just trying to get satisfaction from the stuff, but we don't get satisfaction from stuff. We get satisfaction from friends. We get satisfaction from learning. We get satisfaction from appreciating things, making music, playing sports. And if we could look for our satisfaction there, then we wouldn't have to have all that stuff, and we wouldn't have to drain the resources and make the pollution. And we'd have a whole lot more fun.
Thank you.
What's really going on in this world?
Well, that's a mighty big question. There's 6 billion people and a whole lot of other living things. But I think we're very confused because we're seeing the problems of the resource problems, like the oil, energy problems, climate problems, waste problems, water problems. And they're not the sort of problems we're used to. We're used to having situations where we can just go to work and make more of whatever we need, and it's fine. But when we go to find these resources, we discover that there isn't more of them. And that confusion of thinking, well, let's just do what we've done, which is you just invest more in what's happening and you get more. We're finding that there's some real limits, some real problems that don't respond to that. And it's different. So there's a lot of confusion around that, but there's an enormous inspiration happening, because the people who have been looking at the situation and realize that, you know, the situation has changed now are coming up with all sorts of ideas about how to live with less energy and how to get energy from the sun and how to get more out of life and need less stuff. And so there's a lot of inspiration there, and it's just starting to catch on. Like the last 3 or 4 years, I've been noting a lot more people willing to think about, you know, maybe we need a different way of living now. And that's very exciting, because we very much do.
You are my land, Africa, my mother, Africa. You are my soul, Africa.
Are there any answers or solutions to the many problems the world is facing?
There's many solutions to the many problems. The big picture is that the human family fills the planet, and we need to recognize that. That's the first solution. If we say, okay, we finally have grown enough to fill this entire globe, and we know that that's the only place we have to live, and then start to use the enormous amount of information and ways of doing things that people have developed to accommodate that reality, then we could solve the problems very quickly. If as a human family we were working together on that. We have a situation that's very much like when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. We're talking about the metamorphosis of society. So everybody knows a caterpillar goes and it eats and eats, and it's collecting natural resources and growing. It's just like our industrial society. Then the caterpillar gets to the point of enough, where we're a little fuzzy as a society, but the caterpillar gets it. It goes into the cocoon, and when it comes out, it lives very lightly. It sips the nectar of flowers. It's beautiful, which represents the incredible capacity we have to enjoy living, and its purpose is the well-being of the next generation. So what we need to do as a society is recognize that our time of growth has been fulfilled, and it's time now to reorganize ourselves. We can live, like, to be healthy, you need just good food and comfortable shelter. Education and healthcare are almost free from the environmental perspective, because they're knowledge and goodwill. We know how to do it if we talk with each other and share that knowledge. We can be healthy, we can be well educated, and then we just need a very little amount of real material to maintain ourselves healthy and educated and comfortable. And then we look at what we can do with our lives. So that's what's waiting for us. That's where the solution is. And the butterfly understands that process. It lives lightly, it is beautiful, and we have to pay attention to how we manage the world so that the generations that are coming can manage it as well.
My next question is, how do you see war and famine in Africa?
Well, that's perhaps one of the places where the climate problem has struck the worst, because there's a scarcity. I know that the southern edge of the Sahara Desert is getting drier and drier, and people are moving, and they're moving into other areas that aren't really rich, and so there's conflict and a lot of fighting around that. I gather there's a lot of resource wars as well, where the people who are there aren't, developing the mines and this and that, so everybody's fighting over, how do we get the resources? And again, if we were looking more at how lightly we can live, we wouldn't be looking at how much resources we can consume, and could approach that with a little more benevolence. But it's the wrong way to go about it. It really wastes an enormous amount, and it creates a lot of misery. And how you stop the expansion of the Sahara Desert, again, if we weren't using as much energy to move as much stuff to keep that whole thing powering up, we could ease up on that problem and not have have it expand. We have to take that step. We can't just run until it runs out and then figure we can change it then. It's too late. We need to be working on it now.
What do you think will happen if nobody takes care of the environment?
We'll get some pretty harsh lessons. The problems we're already seeing, as I just mentioned, in terms of the south of Africa, of the Sahara Desert, and there's islands in the Pacific Ocean where the water level is going up when they have storms. It floods too much, and they're figuring they're going to have to leave the islands where they've been living for generations. So these are lessons that are saying, whoa, we're causing some serious problems, and we'll get more and more of those lessons until we realize that we're grown up, that we can't expand, that we have to stabilize, respect the planet's limits, and work with those.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
You are my land, Africa, my mother, Africa. You are my soul, Africa.
Welcome back. My next question is, what gives you hope?
Well, there's a few things that I learned that just made me very excited. One had to do with the nature of life itself, which is that it doesn't take much. There was an experiment that was done by a fellow in the 1600s when science reemerged from the Middle Ages. And people were starting to look into all sorts of things. And this fellow, his name was Jean-Baptiste von Helmont, and he was working in what's now the Netherlands. And he was studying life. And he did an experiment where he took a branch from a willow tree that weighed 5 pounds. And he took a bunch of soil, dried it bone dry, and put exactly 200 pounds in a big pot, put the branch into it, and packed the soil down, covered it over with perforated metal so the air would circulate, but dust wouldn't settle on the soil. And he watered it with rainwater and distilled water. Got nothing but pure water for 5 years. And after 5 years, the branch had put down roots and it had grown into a bush, and he separated the soil from the plant and weighed the plant, and it had grown to 169 pounds. And then he dried the soil bone dry again and weighed it, and found that it had lost less than 2 ounces. So there was 164 pounds of growth from less than 2 ounces of soil. And the rest was carbon from the air and oxygen and hydrogen from air and water. Most of life is a gas. It's carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, the things that just float freely everywhere on Earth, is what most of our bodies is made up of. And there's only a small amount that we need from soil, and we can maintain those nutrients in the soil by returning them to the soil and letting the plants grow from them again. And so the basics of life are very, very simple. And if we look at that, and then we've got this capacity to be alive and to do the things that thrill us with our own lives. Like, have you got some project that you like to work at? I think you play music, and I don't know, I haven't talked with you about your interests, but if there's something that you like to do with your life and you pursue that, you just need to get enough food and a place to sleep, and it's exciting. You wake up and you think, wow, I want to work away at that. And we can do that sort of stuff because we just need to maintain the process of the soils and the nutrients, the food, and so on.
Honorable Arthur Tekazola. Hey! Zamano! Yazarege, Tekazola! Directeur Fulungani. Mazele. Nanungu. Inangundu. Gatwanani. Doyen Wanani. kwanza. Papi, le Saint-Esprit, Africa FM. Salama Bimasha. Jean-Jacques Digital. DJ Daddy Okapi Dance. Charlie Moussoaimai. Blaise Wanga. Chamberton. Doudou Montiri, Freddy Montiri. Kadrema Master Ekiri Bombas. Bana banga moyo ya bino ya ngoyo di. Casablanca Betina Ngai Force Terrestre. Frappé Bangodi. Wadalo Musafiria. RFI Makuchu. Capitaine Ricardo d'Angola. PF. Antoine Sarakengeriva. Michel Ngongo Lito ya Nzambe. Ezui yango eye na force na yango di.